Welcome to another edition of Trail Runner Nation. My name is Don Freeman.
And I'm Scott Warr, and we really have I think, a truly captivating show lined up for you today. We're going to dive deep into the world of metabolism and how it can affect your health, your fitness, and your athletic performance.
And your happiness, Scott. I'm just going to I'm going to throw that in there just to kind of sidetrack your great intro you have going here, and your happiness.
Well, if you think about it, as endurance athletes, we know how important fuel and nutrition is. Today, we're going to blow your mind and maybe take it a step deeper so that you understand what's happening metabolically in the body and how you can kind of play with that dynamic metabolism to your benefit. Joining us today is a true expert in the field. Please welcome Angelo Poli, a renowned coach and metabolic guru, has worked in the diverse range of individuals from top athletes like MVP NFL quarterback Aaron Rodgers to busy CEOs and dedicated moms. Angelo has developed a groundbreaking, I'm going to start that over. Sorry, Ryan. Angelo has developed a groundbreaking methodology that helps people understand their unique metabolic profiles. MetPro is his company, and that's where that comes from. By gaining this understanding, you can understand then how to tailor your nutrition and your training to optimize your health, fitness, and overall performance. So, Angelo, thank you for joining us to help us understand this crazy thing called metabolism. We should know more about it.
Well, we deal with it every day, but we don't know much.
It's true, guys. As a lot of our clients like to joke around, the root of all evil and the source of all frustration and anxiety in life. It's the number one myth out there is that, like so many things when it comes to our biology, there's parity. In other words, there's fairness. We have two eyes, two arms, two legs. When it comes to metabolism, there's nothing fair about it. It's all over the board. You have two people that look identical, but you know what? They could have two totally different metabolic rates running at that point in time. And so...
And I'm going to just add a comment so you can straighten me out. And it changes as we age. When we're 20, we can eat two pizzas and a large soda, but when we get older, we just walk by it and it jumps on us and stays with us.
There is truth to that. But you know what we'll do today? We'll get to this, I'm sure, but I'd like to be able to prove to you that it's not a death sentence. It's not game over. You can actually control your metabolism and write your own story when it comes to that.
I think that's so important because I think for whatever reason, whether it's media, books we read, you go into a bookstore, if you go into a bookstore and see all these diet books, nutrition books. It's a probably billion or trillion dollar industry.
Yep.
And they're telling us that we should do this diet. Matt Fitzgerald, who we've had on a number of times, wrote a book called Diet Cults, and it was, hey, if this diet works for me, then it should work for everybody, and everybody should do it. That's not the case. Each of us, like you just said, Angelo, has a unique, different metabolism. Tell us a little bit about how you came to that realization and why you started this metabolic profile company.
So years ago, when I was just a lad, a lot younger, a few less gray hairs and a few more of them, I was a personal trainer. I was going to transform the world, help people get fit and healthy, but I didn't even know how to do it for myself. I got injured, destroyed my low back, ended up having a lumbar fusion, walked with a cane for a decade, but I didn't want to get out of the industry because I was still passionate about it. So I had to use my brain, not my biceps. So I started studying, and I wanted to help people solve a problem. And as a personal trainer, what I would do is I would go into different clubs and facilities. This was 20 years ago when I was first getting started. And I would ask club owners and different program managers, what's the number one struggle your clients have and your clients come to you wishing to accomplish? What do you think the number one answer was 20 years ago? What do you think it still is today? What do people...
I want to lose weight.
That's it. Yeah. That's the number one thing. What percentage? And usually they'd say 85, 90% are
Mm-hmm.
trying to. Oh, and if they're not trying to lose weight, they certainly want to um, optimize their body composition. And so,
And when I was younger, gain weight. I
okay,
needed to, so there's everybody going in wanted to do something to that scale and move that needle left or right, but we all had that
precisely.
goal.
Precisely. Yep. So at that point in time, I realized that the end to that result was going to be dominantly, well, like it said, abs are made in the kitchen. Your nutrition is going to have the biggest impact on your body composition. So what I started doing is I started teaching seminars, lectures that we would line up in advance. People would come and listen, and I would take them through some mental experiments that maybe we can do today. And basically, what I found is that if you were to line up 10 guys, I'm going to pick on you for a second, Don. I was going to say
Okay.
10 guys about your age, your height, weight, ballpark. I would align them up, and then we were to parse or analyze what their current metabolic rate is or what's maintaining their current weight as far as intake, calories in, calories out, macronutrient ratios, glycemic load, the whole 9 yards. If we were to do that, you know what those 10 guys would have in common, Don?
Oh, I'm ready, and I hope I'm
Nothing.
included.
Nothing.
Oh.
They'd all be different.
Nothing. Exactly.
Ah,
Scott got it. They'd have nothing in common.
you knew who to pick on.
In fact, I'm going to go so far as to say something that in certain corners, this would be an outrageous claim, but it is the truth. In fact, the industry, what do we ask? Well, how many calories do you need to maintain, to lose weight, to gain weight? They're going to say, well, what's your gender? What's your age? What's your height? What's your weight? What's your activity level?
Mm-hmm.
Those are secondary. Those are secondary. Those influence, they absolutely do influence, but they are secondary to what I learned during that time period, and that's coming full circle to what you asked, how did I get into this metabolic profiling process? They're secondary to what your body is accustomed to. In other words, if I could know someone's age, height, weight, gender, and activity level, or I could know what they ate for the last 72 hours, and I could only choose one of those data sets to be able to provide them an effective meal plan, the food log every time. The food log. Why? Because that's going to give me data that's relevant to where that person's metabolism is at right now. And out of that awareness, out of that identifying that was born the process of baseline testing. And that's essentially what metabolic profiling is. We named this process metabolic profiling way before metabolic and profiling were, hot words or key words. But what we meant by it was looking at someone's unique metabolism in the moment, because spoiler alert, it changes, but taking a snapshot of where it is today and using that to calculate, not guess, but actually calculate what your statistically optimal next move is for both your nutrition and broader strokes for your training. And so I think that's what you guys got to experience a little bit. You went through that baseline testing process with Ryan, is that right?
We did, yes. And we'll get into that in a little bit. But
Okay,
it's
okay.
so far it's pretty fascinating, this whole experience. But keep going.
So this baseline testing process enables me to not guess, know where somebody's at. So if somebody is, and I'll put this into a real world example, if somebody is used to eating 1,500 calories a day, very low, right? 1,500 calories, that's all they're used to eating. And they're maintaining their weight. Their metabolic rate is completely different, and the strategy we're going to take to get them to lose weight, gain weight, or change their body composition is completely different from someone who I've evaluated and they're averaging 2,900 calories a day. That's a completely different scenario. The approach is different. And so that is why, exactly like what Matt Fitzgerald said and what other gurus are now coming out more commonly saying is spot on, and that is individuality. And I'm going to set the record straight right here. you go to the Google and you type in how do I lose weight, you're going to get guys with PhDs, experts, gurus, I mean smart people, guys smarter than me, way smarter than me, that are going to say this is the best thing to do. But they're not all going to agree. One's going to say you do it this way, one's going to say you do it that way. So who's right, who's wrong? Here's the answer. All of them are right. They're all right. I've seen every strategy where I've been in this since the late 80s, early 90s. I've seen it all come and go. I was there when we marched all the carbs out back and shot them. I was there when we decided to put them back in and wear the sweat bands. I was there when we decided to go vegan. I was there when we decided to go paleo. I've seen it all. I've seen people get incredible performance, incredibly ripped off of all these different diet strategies, even as different as they are. The key is identifying where your body is at today, so we know which approach is going to be most effective for you.
So, Angelo, let me ask you this: because there were so many different approaches and they worked for a percentage, it's because that happened to hit the mark for that group. So the paleo worked for this group, and the the fruitarians, it worked for this next group.
Yep.
Everybody had their spot, so it all looked like it worked. And then
so it was a crapshoot.
Yeah,
you had to kind of just go out there and shotgun, say, "Oh, I'm going to try paleo," and if it didn't work, you just go, "Oh, this is a bunch of crap." And then you went and became vegan, and maybe you had some changes, and so then you start saying, "Well, everybody should be eating vegan because it worked for me."
By the end of this podcast, your listeners are they're going to get it, they're going to understand, they're going to know what the difference is and why for some people that paleo worked and why for others the calorie restriction worked and why it didn't for certain ones, because it's actually a mathematical equation that's understandable.
So I'm going to ask you this. What percentage of the people that are listening, just say there's the group, what percentage have already selected the right meal and which ones are eating the wrong meal? In your experience, how many people are already dialed in and how many people really need some help?
I'm going to answer that with an interesting factoid.
Yeah.
So at MetPro, at our company, we are all about the analytics. And so we have, and I'm very proud of the data that we have, because our data set comes from actively engaged, participating individuals who have raised their hand. They're putting their money where their mouth is. They've taken the initiative and they are working with an expert to help them transform. Does that mean they never eat chocolate cake? Not a chance. But what it means is they're in it to win it. So our data is good. So we've ran data sets on thousands of clients, and we have hundreds and hundreds of meal plans in our CRM that we use because everyone needs something a little bit different. And do you know, when we ran averages, the most common rounding to this number, the most common macronutrient ratio that popped up was 40, 30, 30. Is that right? No. Did I get 4? 3? Yeah, 40, 30, 30. The zone. Barry Sears, right? Barry Sears program, the 40, 30, 30. Okay, so that was the most common number that came up. It came up 9% of the time, which means Barry Sears was a genius, even though he was wrong 91% of the time.
Let me ask the question. 40, 30, 30, is that carb, protein, fat?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So macronutrients, 40% carbohydrates, 30% proteins, 30% fat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So go ahead.
What year did he establish this? Like 80s or something? 1980s? I'm guessing.
Boy. Yeah, that sounds like a pretty good guess to me. I'm gonna even say it might have been early 80s. I think it's been around for a while. It just gained more popularity later. I could be wrong on that. Don't quote me. Once we actually did a whole actual chart of the earliest diet programs that came out, dating back to the Inuits in the early 1900s that were eating the whale blubber, and we mapped this whole chart through the ages and all the ridiculous things they did in the 50s, some dangerous things they did in the 50s, believe it or not, all the way to the baby food diet, the shakes and the fasts, and when Weight Watchers was born, Slim Quick, and all the different approaches. And it was interesting if you ever want a neat little pie chart to look at over the ages. But yeah, it's really fascinating to see, getting back to that question of how many people are eating right, how many people are eating wrong. The answer is, without awareness and focus on it, you're never going to be optimal, because in order to be optimal, you have to be conditioning your metabolism to whatever your goal is, not stagnant. So now we're getting a little bit into the secret sauce here, but if somebody wants to condition their metabolism to run faster, well, more food causes your metabolism to run faster. By the way, I will prove that in a moment. There's studies, research, and a simple experiment we can go on to prove that. But if you just randomly eat more food, what's going to happen? What do you suppose is going to happen, guys?
Gain weight.
Right. So it has to have a structure to it and a calculated fashion that's going to have checks and balances to make sure that your intake only goes up in pace with the rise in your metabolic rate. And so I didn't invent this, by the way. When I first got into this industry, I was working mostly with physique sports, so bodybuilders. And that was a thing, really popular back in the 90s, early 2000s, even more popular than it is today, I would say. And these guys would get up on stage and they'd be at 3% body fat, and this was their whole world. Now, our community here is runners. We're like, I'm not interested in bodybuilders, but the science is still applicable. So here's the deal. People would come up to me at those shows and they'd say, Mr. Poli, wow, your athlete on stage looks amazing. What do you have him eating? And I would give the tongue-in-cheek answer, boiled chicken and broccoli, and what do bodybuilders eat? Egg whites. And then I would wait for it, because here I knew this question was coming. I would wait for it, and they would say it every time. If I ate boiled chicken and broccoli, would I look like him? Would I look like her? Nope. No, you wouldn't. But let me explain why. These ingredients might very well indeed get you moving along your way, but no, you're not going to look like them, because what makes them look like that, the extreme levels of leanness, is we have conditioned for months their body to take in more and more calories gradually, where we've ramped them up eating just another half sweet potato, another half cup of brown rice over weeks and weeks while training and rocketing their metabolism. And during that time, they didn't lose weight, they just maintained. Now they're eating 4,000, 4,200 calories a day. Now, 8 weeks out of their competition, when I drop them to 1,900 calories of boiled chicken and broccoli, the body fat incinerates off of them. Is it because of the boiled chicken and broccoli? Well, kind of, but that's really not the point. The point is, it's the contrast. It's the contrast of what your body is used to versus what you change it to. And if you're listening at home and you're thinking, okay, that sounds nice, all right, I could see that, but you're exaggerating, I can prove that I'm not. And so I've taken medical experts, I've given this seminar in front of a room full of neurosurgeons and orthopedic specialists and doctors and people in the know. And they all had to agree with the same thing. And you tell me what you guys think. Let's say we take 100 people and we drop them off on a deserted island. We put them on rations. What's a low ration number? Nearly a starvation diet. Give me a number, guys.
900 calories. These guys, I mean, it's a rough island we're on.
Rough island. Perfect. Okay. So here's what we do. So we take Don, we drop him off this island, and we put him on 900 calories. Now I'm going to talk to you, Scott, because
Yep.
Don is on the island.
Uh-huh.
Is Don going to lose weight? What do you think?
Absolutely. I think so.
Correct. Now,
For maybe a short amount of time, and then his body, I think, will try to maintain a homeostasis, and so there's going to be a quick drop, but maybe slow down, right?
well, let's find out. Is that
Okay.
right?
I don't know.
Well,
That's my guess.
Let's answer this question. We leave him there for a year, and then we pick him up. Will Don die?
I'll look like that.
Before we pick him up,
Before we pick him up, will Don die?
I don't think so.
No.
I think his body will adapt.
You're right. You're right. I mean, barring secondary medical issues, absolutely. The fact is 900 calories, there are entire countries in the world that barely subsist on an average of that. It's very sad. He will certainly not thrive.
Right.
But no, he will not die. So here's what that has to mean medically speaking. And feel free to, if I'm wrong, you just tell me. But medically speaking, here's what that has to mean. That means if he had a scale with him at some point on that journey, he would step on the scale, weigh whatever weight. He's lost 50 pounds, whatever it is. But at some point, he'd step on the scale and weigh whatever weight he is now at, get off the scale, eat his 900 calories, a day later or a week later, get back on the scale and still weigh the same weight. Because if that never happened, and he continued just losing and losing and losing weight, where would Don be?
He'd be a speck of sand on the beach.
Right. So at the point on this island where Don is no longer losing weight, he's eating 900 calories a day. Exactly how many calories a day is Don's body burning every day? Exactly how many?
If I'm maintaining weight, that magic 900.
Exactly. Here's why that is so relevant and so crucial for people who've been trying to solve the metabolism conundrum to understand. It works both ways. We've all experienced that with diets and weight loss, where we eat a little less, we lose a few pounds, and it just laughs at us like, okay, no, I'm good here. It works in reverse. So now what would happen if we were to reverse the scenario? Now, Don, we haven't changed anything here, but now you're home sleeping in your comfortable bed. You're still doing your current routine, but now on the MetPro test and our massive tests that we're going to do to see what happens to Don's metabolism, we force you to eat a pint of Haagen-Dazs ice cream every night before you go to bed.
Sounds pretty good. It sounds pretty good, Don.
Like, I'm in. Now, Don, how much weight would you gain in a month if we did that?
Oh, well, I wouldn't be wearing the same clothes that I'm wearing. I think I'd have to do a little shopping, and because I think I'd gain quite a bit.
You might gain.
I think.
So just ballpark. How old are you, Don?
Well, you're asking me today or in 2 weeks? I'm 59.
59. So you're a 59-year expert on your body.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
You know what it's like to live in your body. A month of that. You're eating a pint of Haagen-Dazs at night. You're not, bathing in pizza every day. You're just adding some ice cream at night. You do that for a month. How much weight do you gain? You've been living in your body 59 years. What did you say?
I'm 12 pounds. I'm gonna gain 12 pounds.
So you cited a number that statistically, I've been doing this equation, this little experiment with people for about 12 to 15 years now. And every single person I've asked has said between 5 and 15 pounds. So 12 pounds.
Good answer, Freeman.
Yeah.
I've been around 59 years.
You've been around 59 years. You're an expert. You're about right. So that sounds good. Now here's a little trickier question. How much weight would you gain if you kept doing that for a year?
Well, I don't think there would be a line that continued on. I couldn't extrapolate that same number and move it out 12 different times. I would think I would plateau at some point.
You're correct. So don't get me wrong. You're going to put on some weight and you're not going to be happy about that. But we have a mathematics problem, guys. The industry tells us some certain facts, and you go into the doctor's office and you have these height, weight, and these charts, and all the doctors will tell you, forget the BMI stuff. That's that's not applicable on an individual basis. But we have a math problem. There's 3,500 calories in 1 pound of body fat. That is technically an accurate number. Now, 3,500. Now, a pint of Haagen-Dazs ice cream, I use that as an example because I happen to know that's 1,000 calories. So that's 1,000 calories a night. So that should be 7,000 calories a week, 2 pounds a week by the numbers. Now, last I checked, there was still 52 weeks in a year. That means that Dawn should gain 104 pounds based on the math. Raise your hand if you think Dawn's going to gain 104 pounds.
No, I don't think so.
Not a chance. Not a chance. So if you agree with that, if you're on board so far, here's what you have committed to. You have agreed that Haagen-Dazs ice cream makes your metabolism run faster, because there's no other explanation.
So the metabolism is dynamic. It can move either direction, and our body, in everything that it does, whether you look at heart rate, the sugar content, your glucose, all the things that we measure and monitor, our temperature, our body weight's the same thing, and our metabolism is the same thing too. It fluctuates. It looks for stability. It looks for homeostasis. It looks to try to keep us around for as long as it can. And if we eat too much, we're not going to be around. And if we eat too little, we're not going to be around. So the metabolism is dynamic.
Precisely. I'm not getting at go home and eat Haagen-Dazs. Go home and eat Haagen-Dazs once in a while. Don't do that every night. What I'm getting at is I want to just bust through. I want to tear through these myths and how we come to understand the metabolism. The metabolism is doing its job whenever you're in homeostasis. All it knows is that if you are in a perpetual state of weight gain, you die, and if you're in a perpetual state of weight loss, you die. So its job is to regulate to your environment. Is that so foreign to us? Look at the design of our bodies. We spend time in the sun, our skin's pigment changes. We lift heavy weights, our muscles hypertrophy. We run long distances, our VO2 max and the capacity of our heart and lungs increases. You think the same thing isn't happening on a cellular level, on all the systems involved in the metabolism? Because, our hormonal system is involved, our cellular system is involved, even our hypothalamus and our brainstem is involved. And by the way, that's why there is no magic pill or magic bullet to fix everything, because it's not one problem. When you're gaining or losing weight, it's death by 1,000 little cuts. There's so many interworking systems that are all working and putting you in line for this particular outcome. When you understand how that works, you can control your metabolism within reason. Within reason. You got to work within the parameter of your body and genetics, but you are now in the driver's seat. And guys, that's why through MetPro, what Ryan's doing with you guys is nothing. There's no new special foods we're inventing or magic combinations. He's tracking to see the responses of your metabolism to identify, now we have enough leverage. We're going to go in a cutting cycle. And it's like, okay, why aren't I cutting farther? Because it's not going to work. Your metabolism's bottomed out. We need to do a revving cycle. And now we're going to rinse and repeat. And he's watching where you guys are at to make sure it's optimal. That process is even more critical if you're an athlete. If you're a runner, if you're a trail runner, you gotta have the nutrition to support your activity if you don't want to tank your performance. So that means that fat loss and body composition goals have to be scheduled and planned in cycles when your body can afford it, and you can control when you get your body in that state.
So, Angelo, I don't know if you saw the light bulb come on over on this side of the camera. And it was the light bulb over my head, and I'm sure Scott has one too, but mine is glowing right now. And it really explains why I have gone through the last long period of time and saying, well, I'm not eating breakfast because I don't want the calories. And I'm going to have a light lunch, to maybe even skip it if I can, and just maybe graze on something quick, and then having some dinner, and then rinse and repeat, do it again. my body has now acclimated to this new diet, my 900 calorie island diet that I'm on. And no, it's more than 900, but that's a great example. I've put myself on this calorie restriction thinking this is the solution. It has to be. But in fact, it's not. I've shut down my metabolism so I can't burn calories, and I retain what I have because it doesn't want to let it go.
Precisely. And this isn't something new per se. For years, we've been hearing the researchers and the dietitians throw around words like metabolic set points or plateau points. That's, that's all referencing this survival mechanic that your body has built in. What the industry is just now coming around to and being able to pinpoint the exact mechanic behind is the degree to which your body acclimates. And the degree is correlative to something that researchers are now referring to as adaptive thermogenesis. And one of the things, and this is more just, pardon me, modern pop culture that kind of instigated more interest in this area. And that was when these studies were done close to the time where The Biggest Loser was really popular. Now, I'm often brought in to work with some of the most challenging cases. So I've worked with, believe it or not, a number of the contestants who are on The Biggest Loser after they were off the ranch rehabbing their metabolism. You see, because, and by the way, I knew several of the trainers on that show. They're great people. And these were people that by and large were doing good stuff. So I'm not trying to, sling dirt. But it turns out that when you deprive your body of fuel and exercise 24/7, you do lose a lot of weight, but it drives your metabolism into the ground. What turns out the right way to do it is to do it in spurts. Lose a little bit of weight, take a few weeks off, let your metabolism recuperate and refresh, and then rinse and repeat, push down another 5-10 pounds, rinse and repeat. Problem is that makes for terrible TV. That's very boring. So here's what we get. So now they do all this research and they're saying, wait a second, something's not right. Why are these guys and gals after being on the show, even though they're continuing to eat really clean and really low, yes, we expect them to gain some weight back because they're now smaller people, so they burn less calories. But that mathematic equation is that, okay, I'm going to gain back 5-10 pounds of the 120 I've lost, not 75 pounds of the 120 I've lost. Yet that's what's happening. Why? Adaptive thermogenesis. That now represents what researchers refer to, and you can look this up, as the sum total of all the unexplained adaptation that cannot be explained simply by body mass changes. That adaptive thermogenesis is frankly what I've been trying to scream about at the top of the roofs for about 2 decades, that guys, Haagen-Dazs Island math, it's not adding up. Something's not right here. There it is. It's the adaptive thermogenesis. Your body acclimates. It does it by releasing hormones like insulin, ghrelin, leptin, the cellular system, your hypothalamus, your brainstem. Everything goes, we need to acclimate to become more efficient when there's less fuel coming in. And we need to acclimate to expend more when there's more fuel coming in. And so they used to say, the bodybuilders and the big fitness buffs used to say, well, it's easy. More muscle, faster metabolism. I wish that were true. That is a true statement, but not in the way it's presented. In other words, you with more metabolism tomorrow, more muscle tomorrow versus you today absolutely has a faster metabolic rate. What's not getting stated is your muscle mass is secondary to your nutritional environment if your body and metabolism believes survival is being assaulted. And once again, I can prove that. So they've done research where they took advanced figure and bodybuilding competitors. In this one particular research article that we did at MetPro recently, we looked at an evaluation of a female competitor as she went through 2 stripping cycles, contest prepping cycles, we call them in the industry, and 2 revving cycles after it, recovering. And what it showed was that during her cutting cycles, even though her muscle mass went up because she was doing so much resistance training, her BMR, base metabolic rate, went down. And that's, doubly labeled water, the oxygen chambers, the whole 9 yards. They got that right. They didn't mess up with that. Her BMR, her resting metabolic rate, RMR, which is essentially the same thing, actually went down. And then when she went through a revving cycle after and reintroduced the fuel, her metabolic rate actually went higher than baseline. So they said, that's funny. Let's try this with some guys that are just like high school to college level athletes. And they actually put them in an oxygen chamber and they measured their RMR. And they said, what would happen if they call it refeeding. We just call it overeating. We just feed them too much. And let's see what happens to their metabolic rate. It went through the roof. Why isn't it observed? Well, because, you eat a couple peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, you have some nachos or a cheeseburger, and you just added 1,500, 2,000 calories, so that's going to way overshoot any, what we would consider wins in the metabolic field where someone's metabolic rate is burning an extra 100, 150 calories a day. That's massive. That's getting overshadowed by these huge, so they're gaining weight. Obviously I eat too much, I gain weight. They weren't looking at the details. And what's the saying? The devil's in the details. Well, in this case, the solution is in the details. So what it takes, just like the whole Biggest Loser scenario, is it's not as glorious. It's not as, it's not Hollywood. It's not super exciting. But the reason what you guys are doing with your coach Ryan at MetPro is working so well is not glorious. It's that he's probably, and I don't know what he has you guys eating specifically, but likely has you eating some snacks, and he probably has you trying to eat them the same time every day, and it's probably something simple like fruit and nuts or something along those lines. There's nothing magical about the fruit. There's nothing magical about the almonds. It's that he's conditioning your body to be used to this food at this time of day, every day, so that way in 2 weeks from now, he can take it out, exchange it for a different macronutrient, or trade it, and get a calculated and predictable response from your body. Conditioning your body to be used to something, and then what's the solution behind weight loss and metabolism? Contrast. Creating purposeful contrast, and that's how we transform our bodies.
And I want to just input a little bit of personal experience here. I've been working with Coach Ryan at MetPro for a month and a half or 2 months maybe, and I'm in and forgive me if I don't know the right phases, but he has me eating a ton of food. I told him, I said, Ryan, I don't need this much food. And he goes, no, trust the system. What we're doing is eating this food and we want to maintain your weight. And I don't know how I am doing it. It's magic. It's voodoo. I don't know what it is. You tried to explain it to me, Angelo. I call it voodoo magic, but I am maintaining my weight and I'm eating so much food. And he says, just wait here in a little bit. In about 3 days now, we're going to cut.
Nice.
And he says we're gonna change some of those macronutrients, those percentages of macros, and he said, and then you're gonna have another drop. So far I've had a drop in weight.
Yep.
Now we're building, and I'm maintaining my weight. So my metabolism is increasing, but I'm maintaining my weight, and then we're gonna do another cut, and it's just it's exciting. It goes against the way that we've been taught, calories in, calories out. Like Don was saying, if I can go 1,500 calories and go out for a 2-hour run and burn 1,000 calories, then I should be losing weight indefinitely. So here's my question. It's a little bit of a turn on the trail here.
Okay.
because of what's happened in the news in the last year or so. We've done some podcasts on it. How about nutrient timing? These intermittent fasting people that are out there saying, don't,
Yep.
only eat during a 6 hour block during the day. How does that affect metabolism?
Yeah, solve that riddle, Angelo.
Yep. I actually read your mind. I knew you were going to ask me that because I do about 2 podcasts a week. Every podcast I've been on for the last year and a half, they've asked me that. So
Yeah.
I suspected that was coming. Um, okay, so the first thing is add this to the low carb, the low calorie, the macronutrient timing, the paleo, the vegan, the vegetarian, and now what we have is time gating. And you know what? All of them work. There is science to it. The reason that you'll hear some negative, you'll sometimes hear the expletives around around the concept of intermittent fasting is so many people are passionately opposed to it, and so many people are passionately for it, is because what it's doing is accomplishing something very potently, but it's not accomplishing what people think. So people think that time gating is the ingredient that, and I'm just exclusively speaking now, not from metabolism, from a metabolic like blood sugar standpoint. I'm speaking from a energy balance, fat loss, fat gain, muscle development standpoint. Most people think that by timing my nutrients between this window, I am somehow optimizing my metabolism to run faster, which is why I'm losing weight. That is the farthest from the truth you can get. It doesn't work that way. Simply, your body is getting used to it. In the same way that if you ate nothing all day and just ate a bucket of KFC at night before bed, your body would eventually get used to that also. Your body will get used to and find a way to recreate homeostasis based on anything you do. With intermittent fasting, time gating is a very psychologically potent and effective way of gamifying calorie restriction. If you took someone who is eating, okay, diet A, here's how I eat. Now, if you said change nothing about how you eat, just eat all of that same food in just a smaller window of time, any difference would be extremely nominal. How do I know? I've tried it. Also, a plethora of research has been done on this, and they've compared the 16 and 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, the 16, 8, and then there's a 10, 12, and then there's a 3, 1, and there are more models of intermittent fasting than you can shake a stick at. There's even models where it's you eat a ton for 5 days, and then you don't eat anything for 2. They've compared all of them against just the equivalent in caloric restriction, and what they found is that the outcome was about the same. So why then do I say there is real science to it and it is effective for some people? Well, because if you're eating McDonald's for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and you have no intention of stopping McDonald's for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and you simply start eating only McDonald's at lunch and dinner, net, you win. That's good. You're going to lose some weight. Here's where it can be extremely detrimental to your progress. You're an individual who suspects you have a slow metabolism. Anyone can be affected by this. Women tend to be especially vulnerable to this metabolic trap. You suspect you have a slow metabolism. You are already eating very little. The only way you can lose another 3 or 4 pounds is by skipping breakfast. Especially if you find it has to be breakfast because that's the only way you don't get too hungry. So you start skipping breakfast, you're already eating very little. You're paying for that weight loss on a credit card because now your body is acclimating to, and I am not exaggerating when I tell you how many women come to me eating about 900 calories a day. intermittent fasting because they're just not eating any breakfast. And at lunch, they're eating a chicken salad and they're eating a reasonable dinner and they're eating about 900 calories a day. And what's the complaint? I'm exhausted. Of course, they don't have enough fuel. And I'm still not losing more weight. I've just plateaued. And then I have to break the bad news, and that is there is nothing to extract. There's no more calories to cut. There's no more carbs to take away. This is a one-way road. So what we can do is we can do it the right way and retrain your metabolism back up gradually, or we can tear off the Band-Aid and do it the wrong way, in which case your metabolism will also speed back up, but you'll gain 10 pounds back in the process. And so that's why there is absolutely science too. When you're going more hours without eating, it can be potent. You can put yourself in a little bit of glycogen depletion. There is various strains and minute layers of optimal depending on what you're trying to do. But the vast majority of people that are really wanting to learn to understand and control their metabolism, like you guys have experienced, I am teaching them the right way, and it's eating more frequent, not less frequent, most of the time. Most of the time. Did that make sense? Was that reasonable at least?
Yes.
And I think you just covered the question that I had, or what I wanted to bring up. I was going to invite you out to my 900 calorie island that I'm at, marooned and by myself. And I'm eating 900 calories, but I move it forward to reality, which is about the 1,500 calories, the skipping breakfast like you were talking about, a light lunch, and then a reasonable dinner. What does the body then do to try to reach homeostasis? And I'm thinking what it's probably doing, based on the story you just told, I feel fatigue. I feel lethargic. I don't feel energetic. The run that I have planned seems harder than it used to be because I don't have the resources to go get it done. So you can't, what's that, rob Peter to pay Paul? You can't take away calories and expect to be able to perform. You need those calories to reach your running goals. And so don't rob yourself and restrict those when they're really the resources you need to get ready for the things you want to do.
You hit the nail on the head. And look, this is what I do for a living, is I teach people how to lose weight effectively. But my battle is on the opposite end of the spectrum. And it is not just, everyday weekend warriors that I have to have this battle with. It is some high performing athletes. I can't tell you. I mean, I'm not going to name names, but I've worked with a few, guys that were top 10 CrossFitters. And we are still at odds because they had a chance of hitting the podium. But at the end of the day, if you want to know the truth, some of them just wanted to look a little better with their shirt off than they wanted to win, is really what it boiled down to. So there's that balance of understanding. And I'm telling some of these guys, that's great. You're already lean. We can take you down, trust me, I can take you down to 3% body fat if you want after your competition. So you runners, you got to listen. After your race, you're going to have another race coming around the corner. There's always the right timing to do this. So you want to time your revving cycles as you're ramping up for competition and you're ramping up. And you want to time your cutting cycles when you have plenty of time out. And hey, we have a few months where your body, you're not going to be running maximum mileage every day of the week. And it's easy to do.
So I love the bodybuilding piece where you're talking about build phase and stripping phase to get ready for the show. And so I start thinking about getting ready for our peak race, or we call them our A race. Should there be some cycles with that we should think about, revving up metabolism and bringing it back down? This should be common knowledge. We should be practicing this stuff. We talk about tapering before a big race, which is reducing our miles, not running as much, making sure we're fresh. Any small niggles that happen to be there, you want them to heal and have legs to feel like they have springs so you can go get it done. But we should be thinking about cycling our nutrition for the big race too.
Absolutely.
Not just carb loading before the race.
Right. Eating a pizza the night before the race.
Correct. And most people, little side note here, most people don't really understand the mechanics of how carb loading works. If you work with a professional dietitian, a sports nutritionist that takes you through a real high level carb loading cycle, they actually take carbs out a few days before to hypersensitize your body to glycogen uptake, and then they add it back in, and it's not even in the amounts you'd think. And when you start thinking about it, wow, by cutting my carbs even this much I get hypersensitive to carbs. Ooh man, what's happening when I go 3 days without carbs? So but yes, absolutely, you want to be timing your nutrition to optimize your events, your races, your athletic. I mean, that's sports nutrition 101, but I'm going to be honest, I always like to leave the community, our listeners, with something that's practical that they can execute on tomorrow. So if you're listening at home just thinking, okay, just give me one thing. If I had to do one thing tomorrow to start improving my runs, my performance, and good for my metabolism, what is it? And it's actually simple. Have a consistent nutrition routine. Build some level of base. In other words, sit down and go, okay, what am I willing to do? I'm willing to eat breakfast, lunch, dinner, 1 or 2 snacks. Make that a routine. Let your body get conditioned to that. Now it becomes real simple, because now, as your training ramps up, as it always will as you're going into a race, the major delta, the difference, the contrast in your nutrition can, at least in part, come from your intra-training fuel, your supplementation. Well, as you're getting ready, when you're supplementing during, pre, post, and during, that will make up for the increase that you need. Now, if you're more advanced, if you were working with one of our coaches, we would actually be taking you through graduated phases, well, like Scott and Don, you guys are doing now and experiencing leading up to a race. But if you're doing this at home, just as simple as committing to, hey, it doesn't need to be bite for bite, but I am going to commit to having a somewhat consistent amount of protein and carbs at breakfast, protein, carbs, fats at lunch and dinner, fiber via vegetables, lunch and dinner, fruit, snacks and carbs via fruit for some snack times, and prepare just a couple meals in advance. And if you start doing that, I promise you, you'll feel the difference in your energy and your performance.
So, this is still, we have so many questions and we're running out of time. But as I'm thinking of this and how it can help someone as they're planning for their A race, and they go through cycles of training where they may ramp up the miles, ramp down the miles, maybe do some specific race type training. You want to time that with your nutrition cycle as well, right?
Correct.
So when you're ramping up and getting your metabolism up there, and you're eating more carbs and more food and volume and of all the macronutrients, that's when you want to be working the body hard, because you have more fuel, you have more energy, you have more, as Don said, spring in your legs. And then as you start to do a cut, that's when you kind of maybe slow down and ramp down your training. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, precisely.
Okay.
You want to time it. And you can do both at the same time, but it's a matter of priority. So when we first start with a client, day one, the first session is a goal setting session. And goal setting to me is probably not what you would think of when you hear the word goal setting. To me, a productive goal setting session is we're going to decide what you're not going to focus on. Because I've been doing this 20 years. I've dieted about 20,000 people. And I can conclusively tell you, we have identified the magic number of things your body can adapt to efficiently at one time. And you know what that magic number is?
One.
Exactly.
Finally, I get something. Finally,
He got one right.
I got one right.
It's
Ryan,
one.
put that towards the beginning of the podcast, would you?
No, that's it. And that's what I have to, because I get people calling me all the time. It's like, well, I know. You want to, you want to bench 300 pounds. You want to squat twice your body weight. You want to run a sub 6-minute mile. You want to be under 10% body fat. No, by the way, you want to lose 15 pounds and have more energy. I know. Which one do you want to do first? That's what we have to figure out. It's not that you can't do all of them. You can't. If you try and do all of them at the same time, I don't care how great the new supplement is, how great the new workout strategy, the new program. Look, I'm not, yes, I sell fitness and nutrition for a living. That's how I pay the bills, but I don't have any one approach I'm stuck to using. I will use whatever is going to get the job done. I get paid when my clients win. My clients need to perform in their sport. They need to excel in their leagues. Whatever they're doing, they need to improve human performance on. What I have found is that systematically adjusting your nutrition, being a specialist for the items you are struggling to accomplish, to get them done, check them off the list, then progress. Don't let your nutrition be stagnant, but progress to the next strategy and the next strategy. That is the way where you take good athletes and you make them great. That is the way you take just everyday people that are training for the sport of life and you help them succeed. That's what we're passionate about.
Angelo, you've helped 20,000 athletes reach their goals and countless pounds, certainly more than 20,000. What are some of the, what's the most impressive thing you've seen? What have you learned? What surprised you the most? There's one question in here. There's one question. There's a lot. It sounds like a lot, but
He likes to build up. He likes to build up.
We're coming to the point. Watching the body and observing it, what has amazed you most about our body and about how incredible it is?
Its ability to adapt to the stress you put on it. That's what I'm so passionate about, the design in our body and how it adapts to the purpose, the use that it's for. When we feed it more fuel, and the way that it utilizes that fuel, when we eat less, the way it acclimates to that, the way the body can be reconstituted. In my gym years ago when I had brick and mortar, I used to have a series of brick and mortar gyms. What we would do was we would line the before and after photos on the wall, going all the way around. And eventually we made it all the way around the facility. People would come in, they would just look person after person after person. And invariably, they would point to someone on the wall. Look at that athlete. It's like, how do I eat to look like an athlete? And I would say, I'm going to tell you the secret. You ready? You're going to be an athlete. Let's start day one. And it takes one day at a time. And I think that's what the people here listening to your podcast, I think they're already in. I think they're there. They have that mindset. Your community, as I've gotten to know them a little bit already, this is the mindset and what people want. They're in it. Now, when you add just that little bit of extra education on, okay, how does this apply to my body? Some math, some science, you can take that good intent and you can turn it into something pretty amazing. So keep doing what you guys are doing. It's awesome.
Angelo, so we've discussed that we're all different. Our metabolic profiles are all different. And if you're listening, if you made it to this point in the podcast, I'm sure you've asked a question either out loud as you're running down the trail or in your mind. Well, what type of metabolic profile am I? How do we find out what our metabolic profile is to have a baseline to start this whole metabolic training?
Guys, you can, one thing you can do is you can go to metpro.co/trailrunner, and I'm very grateful to you guys and your community for letting me extend that offer here on your podcast, metpro.co/trailrunner. And what we would do is actually talk to you. Not just press 1 if you want to. No, we'll actually, you'll talk to either Steve or Missy, and these are real people. Steve's a runner, by the way. He trained with us for Boston. And they're going to actually ask you about you. And that's the fundamental piece missing. If you go to any nutritionist or any, fitness guru, and they say, here's what you need to eat, and they slide a piece of paper across the desk and say, eat this. And they haven't first asked, tell me about your life. Tell me about your sleep. Tell me, do you have kids? Do you have a spouse? Do you have family? What's your travel schedule? What's your work schedule? What did you eat last week? Nothing on that piece of paper is relevant. Nothing. They need to know you. And so that's so call us up, talk, even if we're not the program for you, we love sharing this. And it's good for us also, because even if it's not for you, you'll go and you'll tell someone else in your running group about us. Maybe they'll want to utilize it. But call us up. We'll talk to you for a few minutes, get to know a little bit about what you're doing, and then we'll share with you, okay, here's what others with a similar profile, similar demographic that's come in. Here's what we've started with for them. Here's what's worked really well. Here's the challenges we see really commonly. And here's some of the solutions that we'll implement. And you can start taking some of those tidbits you'll learn in that one-on-one conversation and apply it right away. Or you'll decide you want to work with one of our coaches, and that's great also. We'd love to have you in the community. But yeah, no, that's the next steps, and I'm very grateful to you guys for letting us share that here today on the podcast.
Well, thank you, Angelo. You know, I often get made fun of by my friend Don when I
Come on.
when I go through an episode and I say, hey, that was a golden nugget. Hey, that was a golden nugget. And usually it's a small phrase or an idea. Angelo, this process or experience going through and having my metabolic profile identified and then going through the experience has been the golden nugget. It's not a phrase, it's not an idea, it's a process, and the process for me is a golden nugget, because what I am being taught and what I am going through is a golden nugget for me. And so I want to thank you, because it's working. It's working for me. I'm going to continue doing it as long as I can, because I think that this is the way to outlive maybe the age that I was supposed to keel over. I want to be healthy. I want to be strong. I want to be fit for as long as I can. And I think that nutrition is a key to that. So is the exercise. So is all the other stuff, the relationships and all that sort of stuff. Running, I want to keep doing that. But I think nutrition is a key component to that. So thank you, Angelo, for helping us understand this crazy thing called metabolism.
And I think if nutrition is a block, you've got to put it on top. Everything else follows underneath it. Even if you did the exercise a lot, but your nutrition was poor, you wouldn't make it to that end goal. Nutrition has to be number one, regardless of what else you're doing. It's got to be right on top.
Yep.
Thank you guys so much for having me today. It has been an honor to visit with you guys and to visit with the folks from Trail Runner Nation.
Excellent. Well, get on your shoes, find out what your metabolic profile is, and go out and run.
Mas.